Hello, hello, hello. Normally I get to this earlier, but apologies. It's been a busy morning for me. And as a result, we're a little bit late with the Vettori versus Cannonier recap. It was a fine card. It was a legitimately fine card. I'm not going to talk much about I'm not going to talk about Bellator PFL because I didn't watch them. The PFL card didn't hold really any particularly appeal to me. And I'm kind of boycotting Bellator because of the they took my free cards on YouTube away, and I'm not. I think that's an entirely bad decision. I think if you are any promotion but the UFC, putting your fights behind a paywall is an exceptionally dumb idea. Now, to be clear, PFL does it fine because their paywall is ESPN Plus. UFC fans already have that. I think one is fine with that because their paywall is Amazon Prime, which a lot of people have. Like if you're on a service like Prime, somehow Netflix, stuff like that, you're fine. Whatever. Okay, that's a paid service a lot of people have. Whereas this move by Bellator was, we're going to put it on a pay service to try to get Paramount more money. And it's not working. I assume it's not working. There seems to be zero good buzz about it. So, anyways, I'm kind of boycotting Bellator, even though I would have. Well, no, I mean, I would have loved to have seen Pitbull try to go for the triple title, but I know that he didn't get it. So, like, my interest in that fight is a little bit calmed down. Like Pettis won. My interest was very, very one-sided. It wasn't the fight as a whole. It was, well, what happens if Pitbull wins? And then he didn't. Okay, let me segment into the politics of fighting for like just a hot second here. We have video of the Conor McGregor incident at the Miami Heat's game. And we have people screaming rapist. We have people saying screaming innocent. Because the video displays the events slightly different. Well, considerably different. I will concede that. Considerably different to how the victim's statement reads. And that probably is going to doom that from like a charges and prosecution related matter. Proving sexual misconduct, sexual assault is exceptionally difficult. And that has basically been the hallmark of Conor McGregor's entire like legal troubles with this stuff is, yeah, charges don't come forward because it's very hard to get a case that any prosecutor believes they can actually win. So there is that. However, with this whole thing, I want one thing to die. I want one thing that I am stunned still exists. And that is, you'll get these Conor McGregor defenders who will talk about how great of a husband he is, how committed of a family man he is, and all that fun. Can we end that now? Because, like, no matter how you read the video that got released, you have Conor McGregor taking a woman and leading her to a bathroom in a public place, definitively for something sexual, really for something sexual. Can we stop that? I mean, you know what? I actually do believe he is a good father. Ironically, he seems to really love the kid. There are various journos that have interviewed him and whatever, media personalities. They interview him. He wants something for the kid. You know, he loves being a father. But he is not the picturesque family man in any way, shape, or form. He is not, and I very much doubt that he is a good husband. So can we stop using that defense? Please. That's what came out of this for me. All right, let's get on to the fights. Main event, Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier. This fight did not go like I thought it would. The first round had elements of what I kind of thought. Vettori working at a slightly higher pace, outlanding Cannonier. I actually didn't think they would both hurt each other in the first round, but they did. Marvin hurt Jared twice, took the round, and I was like, you know what? I'm feeling good about my pick. It's not going the way I thought it was. Cannonier is actually hurting Vettori. And then the second round came in. Oh my God, did Jared Cannonier beat that butt in the second round? Whew. Turning round of the fight, he hurt Cannonier repetitively. I think Cannonier was basically rocked for like 4.5 minutes of the round. Whoa. It was a nasty beatdown. It was a 10-8 beatdown. It was good. Ooh, he literally beat him at one point in the round. He literally beat him fence to fence. Like they were up against the fence on one side. Cannonier was unloading on him. Vittori's trying to get away. Cannonier follows him right to the other fence and starts beating him. It's like, pillar to post. It's fence to fence. Man, it was an ugly round. Credit to Vettori for being incredibly tough. We knew the dude's got a chin made of some ethereal metal, frankly. And this just continues to prove that. Third round came in. It was a better round for It was a better round for Vettori because it couldn't get much worse. But he lost that round too. I thought he lost the fourth round. One judge gave him the fourth round. Looking at the numbers, apparently, according to UFC stats, Vettori did outland Cannonier in the fourth round, but I think he got hurt in the fourth round. And at no point do I think he troubled Cannonier. So, no, I think he won that round. I think he won the fifth round. Cannonier gets a massive, massive win. But now here's the downside of it for him. I don't know what to do with either of these guys. They both have lost to Whitaker and to Adesanya. I have no interest in seeing them fight again. Those particular matchups again. There's no Alex Pereira around. Apparently, Pereira is going up to 205. Is the plan? The plan. And Cannonier's also already fought Strickland, and Vittori's buddies with Strickland. So like, what do we do here? What do we do with these guys? What does this fight mean? Kind of weird. Like, the best I've got is that essentially they get the results of the Alaskarov versus Costa fight. Cannonier gets the winner. Vettori gets the loser, assuming that the loser is not Costa, because one would think they would not book Vettori Costa too. Although actually, you know what? It's fine as any fight. I don't know. I don't know what you do with either of them. Like, if Costa loses to Alaskarov, what do you do with him? You might as well. I'm not sure who's going to win that fight. I'm going to have to dig deeper into it. My gut says Costa because I'm just not convinced by Alaskarov, but I do want to dig deeper into it. Because I didn't dig very deep into Alaskarov's debut because it was fighting against Phil Rowe. Not Phil Rowe. Phil Haas. And Phil Haas just kind of falls apart. And that largely made my pick for me. I didn't have to go much deeper than the Dana White Contender Series fight I think Alaskarov had. Or I watched one fight. I forget if it was Dana White Contender Series. It was Alaskarov's most recent fight. I watched that and that was it. I actually want to go deeper when he fights Costa. But yeah, it was a good main event. By the way, this card was still getting a lot of hate. Like, I am all here for making fun of the UFC for not having quality cards with the roster that they have, and that their business model, their pumping out content model, is absolutely to blame for it. There is no one but the UFC's business planning to blame for it. I even defended the matchmakers that I don't necessarily think they're doing a bad job. I think they're being asked to do something that is going to produce low quality. But this card, I thought, was pretty good on paper. I thought it delivered. And yes, we were chronically lacking a co-main event. We're going to talk about that right now. But I did think that this card got a little bit too much hate. Anyways, co-main event. Saryukian, outside of getting hurt briefly by Joaquin Silva, did what he was going to do. He dominated and picked up the W. I don't really have a lot more to say. Yeah, landed apparently 80-23, scored 4 takedowns, and got the job done with ground and pound in the third round. Maybe it's not the statement that some people wanted. Like, there were people who were like, this is a first round finish or bust fight for Saryukian. I think that's overlooking how tough Silva is and just the stylistic matchup. Like, Saryukian's not a big finisher. And there's nothing wrong with that. Realistically speaking, a lot of fighters who are very, very good are not big finishers. It's just a stylistic notation. He's a takedown guy, a pressure guy, and a dude who throws wacky kicks, loves throwing axe kicks. And that just isn't really going to lead to a lot of like first round finishes. Like he has to kind of grind it out. A win is a win. For what's next, I just tweeted someone about this actually. They were like, I don't really see Saryukin's path forward, and I agree because like people like Poirier, like Chandler, are not going to fight him. Gaethje might. Like Gaethje fought Fiziev. I think there's a chance he fights Saryukin, but I doubt it because at least like Fiziev was like guaranteed stand and bang fun. Saryuki's probably going to try to take him down. He's got no interest in that. So fighting backwards and the potential for like a loss at a boring fight, 50-50 at best. That does leave you with like Beneil Dariush, and that is my pick. But like with Beneil losing to Charles Oliveira, is that a path forward? Or is that just very much a temporary like... Well, no, I mean, at the same time, beating Beneil probably puts him in the top 5. And at the very least would have people like Rafael Fiziev and like Jalen Turner and stuff coming up to at least try to fight him. At least it gives him something to do, even if it doesn't advance him to the title picture. So there you go. Joaquin Silva, I don't care. And what I mean by that is I want him in a fun fight. I want the UFC to do him a solid. He took a fight that he had no business being in and no real hope of winning. And the UFC should reward him with just something fun. Let that man pick his next opponent. Like not a top 5-10 fighter or anything, but like outside the top 10, Silva, here you go. What do you want? We'll make it happen. That's how it honestly should work. That's the kind of solid he did then. Christian Leroy Duncan versus Armen Petrosyan was fun at range. I picked Christian Leroy Duncan, and someone in the Discord asked me why. Because he's not my usual cup of tea. I'm normally the guy who is very late to a physical-based bandwagon. I tried to be a little bit early this time. I tried to be like Christian Leroy Duncan. He's tall. He's really athletic. He's really confident. He's creative. He's going to do some stuff. And then, the complete lack of connective tissue, setups, and everything basically just derailed him against Petrosyan. Petrosyan just basically was like repetitively taking him apart, like hitting him at kind of will. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the fight was not competitive. The fight absolutely was competitive. Christian Leroy Duncan hits hard. He was able to hit Petrosyan. He's, an offensive force. It's just his defense does not exist. And he's also very bad in the clinch. I really did not enjoy this fight when it went into the clinch. It is not an anti-clinch thing. It's just I'm not interested in seeing Petrosyan clinch. I'm not interested in seeing Christian Leroy Duncan clinch. It was just not what I wanted to see. I'm actually interested because there were some thoughts that maybe Duncan won this fight. Petrosyan outlanded him in all 3 rounds. I gave him all 3 rounds, to be clear. The third round was a little bit of a coaster one, so like the spinning elbow from Christian Leroy Duncan maybe wins it. I think the argument was that he might have won the first round. I don't think so. I think Petrosyan banked 2 very solid rounds. What was the scorecards here? Derek Cleary went first 2 rounds for Petrosyan. Sal D'Amato went first 2 rounds for Petrosyan. Tony Weeks went all 3. So I agree with Tony Weeks. D'Amato and Cleary are fine. That spinning elbow in the 3rd round that CLD hit, it did do a boatload of damage. It did bust Petrosyan's face up. It did make him look like he had been in an absolute war that he hadn't really, to be honest. So I'm okay with that. But it did lead us to like Dom Cruz being Dom Cruz with the, hey, guys, he cut him. He might have won the fight. Damage, guys. Damage is the main criteria, guys. Damage is the main criteria. That cut, he's got to cut him back. He's got to cut him back if he wants to win. And oh God, is it so goddamn annoying. I think he was just saying the round as opposed to the fight, but I think at one point he did say the fight. And it's so damn annoying. I really want to literally listen to the dude who lectured Dom Cruz on how to score fights, and maybe he really did say like a cut wins a round. I've not heard anyone back that up. I've been to some judging seminars, at least up here in Canada. Maybe the one in Vegas is greatly different. I don't know. But I mean, Jared Villel teaches at both of them. By the way, Jared Villel sucks. We'll talk about him later. And I don't get that opinion. Don't get me wrong. Like a cut, cuts are good. They give you that visual appearance. It's visceral. It's going to get something from the judges, obviously. And just in general, it's going to interfere with like eyesight and make the fighter think twice. I mean, you're bleeding like a stuck pig. That's going to affect how you fight. But no, if you get your ass kicked for 4 minutes and 59 seconds of a round and open up a cut with like the one strike you land, no, you shouldn't win the round. And that seems to be the idea that Dom Cruz operates under. Petrosyan got the win anyways. That's good. For his next fight, he wants a top 15 fighter. He's not getting it. He doesn't deserve a top 15 fighter. Like, I'm not even saying that is a horrendous negative, but it's like you beat Christian Leroy Duncan, who's a very flawed fighter, and whose only win is over Dushko Todorovic under somewhat weird circumstances. Like, that's not gateway to the top 15. Chidi and Jaquani would be a really, really fun fight, though. I would love that. And for Christian Leroy Duncan, the fight begging to be made, the fight screaming and shining light into the world of MMA is Julian Marquez. Pat Sabatini just out-grappled Lucas Almeida to an arm triangle submission in the second round. I don't have much to say. We know what Sabatini is. He's a good wrestler, good grappler from top position. He's also just an incredibly stiff striker who, if he does get stuck on the feet, is probably going to get knocked out. Almeida just couldn't stop the shakedowns. So we didn't learn really much. I guess we learned about Almeida. This was his first real chance to fight somebody with a persistent, hard-nosed grappling game, and he came up short. So we learned something about him, I guess, that he really kind of is confined to just kind of that action fighter role. For next opponents, I've got Bill Algeo for Sabatini, someone who just offers him a little bit more off his back and a little bit more of a scrambling threat. And it seems like I'm never going to get Bill Algeo versus Billy Quarantillo, which I really, 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 really want, and has been booked a couple times. And for Almeida, I've got Luis Saldana, like the perfect kind of just action fighter. Boom, go with it. Manuel Torres knocked out Nicholas Moda. This is another fight where I don't feel like I learned a lot. Because we know Moda can be knocked out. Jim Miller very much proved that. We know that he has bad defensive reactions. Jim Miller proved that. No, honestly, I knew that before the Jim Miller fight. And Torres has got really, really heavy hands and is a pretty nice finisher. I lost money on this. I bet Moda. Moda was an underdog. Couldn't resist. I don't know. For Torres, I've got Uroš Medic next. Feels kind of appropriate. And for Moda, I've got the winner of Trevor Peek versus Shepe Marisal. If Trevor Peek wins that fight, oh god, Trevor Peek is a 2-0 fighter in the UFC. That is a reality I don't know how to comprehend. Muslim Salikov versus Nicholas Dalby was an interesting fight. Dalby came out and kind of just played Salikov's game for the first round. Go strike for strike, you go, I go, and Salikov will win that because he hits pretty hard and he's creative and very, very accurate. But then Dalby started to turn up the pace in the second and the third round, started working in his more of his grappling, more of a clinch game, just crashing into him, mauling him, and making it a fight like Dalby does. Had an interesting conversation on Twitter. Someone was like, I think Salikov is just done. I don't think so. Don't get me wrong, Salikov's getting old, and I'm sure he's worse than he was at one point. But I think that he wins the fights he was going to win 5 years ago still, and he loses the fights he was going to lose 5 years ago still. He's just a really, really deliberate paced fighter. And if you upset that and you push a pace on him and you make him uncomfortable, he doesn't really have answers, is what it boils down to. And we saw it, had Dalby kept fighting at his pace like he did in the first round, probably would have lost. It was just as soon as Dalby was like, you know what? I'm going to take it. Let's have a look at the stats on this fight. Just curious. Not really much to like inform any kind of scoring on, but yeah. So well, it wasn't really so much picking up the pace; it was more just the aggression. Because actually, Dalby threw 45 strikes in the first round, or 44 strikes in the first round. He just landed 21 of them. It was more like he threw 27 in the second round. It was more just like, what if I just get in your face and just make this grimy? Actually, landed more shots, but actually threw less. Ironically, just make him uncomfortable. Give him like take 3 minutes of control time and just kind of like beat him up and just don't give Salikov space and time to like be creative and to spin and to do his kung fu stuff. There you go. Yeah, that's what you do. I mean, like for example, like Salikov still threw 29 strikes in the final round. It was the second highest strike total of the fight and landed 20 of them. Significant. And threw 34 and landed 25. Like he was still quite active. Like that's not bad pace for welterweight. It's just he can't go above that. He's not comfortable. He's comfortable in a very very narrow fight, and that's really just all there is to it. I did find it weird that Derek Cleary and Sal D'Amato gave Dalby the first round. They gave 30-27s. I disagreed with that because Salikov landed more and landed slightly cleaner in the first round. Like that's kind of all there is to it. Like I don't want to be like the guy who goes like, well, he landed more strikes and volume won in the round. But like the truth is that sometimes volume does win you the round. If your opponent doesn't hit you with anything like super clean, super powerful, doesn't rock you, doesn't buckle you, doesn't push you back, doesn't cut you, doesn't damage you in any significant way, then yeah, the volume should do it. And Salikov strikes, like I said, were the cleaner ones. Because Dalby is not a clean striker. Dalby is a notably not clean striker. He has to outland people, I think, to win rounds. But anyways. Next fights. I don't think I said it. For Dalby, I've got Max Griffin, or the winner of Max Griffin, Michael Morales, anyways. Because it feels like he should have fought Max Griffin and he just hasn't. And for Salikov, if he's not retired, I've got Tim Means because it's a fight Tim Means can win, but it's still fun and still interesting. Ronnie Barcel's Miles Johns didn't happen. I'm very sad about that. Alessandro Costa more or less dominated Jimmy Flick. Compromised his legs, blew out his front leg, had him stumbling and falling at various points, and eventually just dropped elbows on him, just dropped bombs. Was this the Jaron Villel fight? Because I thought that this fight could have been stopped a little bit earlier. Who was? I'm not remembering who the ref was. It's not a good night for refs. Keith Peterson screwed up, and we'll talk about that. And we also had screw-ups from Jaron Villel, because he always screws up. No, this one was Keith Peterson. So Keith Peterson was a little bit late on the stoppage here. Someone did say that he got obviously in trouble for the Lawrence Argueta fight. Maybe he was a little bit less keen to step in. He still should have. The problem for Jimmy Flick remains the same. He's not very athletic. He's not very structured. He's a guy who kind of always has like a dynamic chance to win. He's got basically the puncher's chance of submissions because he is actually good at taking the back. He is actually good at like finding flying entries and stuff. But there's no way to force you to grapple with him consistently. He's just going to get his butt kicked. And the thing really, the big problem really for Flick is I'm not even interested in seeing him fill the Vettori or Victor Altamirano, Carlos Hernandez, who we'll talk about in a bit, role where like they're kind of like good little entry stepstones where it's like, here's a guy who's kind of good at a lot of different things. He's game, he's scrappy. You're a guy who's been, maybe blowing people up with like first round stoppages or whatever. You're probably not going to do that to them because they're tough. Let's see what you do. Let's, take them into deep waters and see what happens. That's a very valuable role in the company, even if it's like, never going to be a ranked fighter, never going to be a title contender or anything. Never going to be on a main card, probably. But Flick doesn't do that because, like, it's not like Flick asks a question that anybody else in the division is going to ask. Flick is his own weird thing, and it's why I don't have an opponent for him. I'm not going to pick him to win fights, and he doesn't test prospects in a way that they need to be tested. I've got as for Costa, I've got him against David Dvorak because David Dvorak's on a 3-fight losing streak, and I had a really hard time last week coming up with an opponent for him after he lost to Steve Erceg. Kwaiko Kong versus Christian Quinones. Quinones kind of got worked over here. Kong looked very, very, very good. He looked slick. He hurt. He got hurt, but then hurt Quinones right back. Onto the mat we go. Takes his back. Looks for choke. Renegade choke. Boom. Kong is a super dangerous grappler. He likes to strike. He sometimes looks very, very slick as a striker. Sometimes he doesn't. I've got him against Julio Arce, another guy who just is really inconsistent. That could be a masterpiece fight, or it could be sloppy as crap. But and for Quinones, I've got Raul Rosas Jr. because they both have problema in their name. It's not going to happen. It's too far out for Rosas. The problem for Raul Rosas is he got to the UFC too early. And he's not going to get the time to really learn. He's going to get Sage North cut it. That's the answer. There's nothing that says he can't succeed, but he's in the UFC as a teenager, and there are a lot of guys like Christian Rodriguez out there who are just going to be too deep. Carlos Hernandez, Dennis Bondar. Hernandez more or less was taking Bondar apart. Bondar was trying to pressure him, trying to do his bully grinder thing, and he could not do it. And he could not do it to Hernandez. I think his UFC run is over. Serious point here. I really do. I was very turned off of his chances when he lost to Malcolm Gordon because it was the manner he lost to Malcolm Gordon. It's not how you're supposed to lose to Malcolm Gordon. You're not supposed to be out-muscled by Malcolm Gordon. You're not supposed to just be, especially when that is your game. When your game is the grinding, clinch dude, you can't do that against Malcolm Gordon. I don't know who you're going to do it against. And he couldn't do it to Carlos Hernandez. Hernandez just largely beat him everywhere. Won the first 2 rounds on my card. Bondar also got incredibly lucky not to get a point take. Dude did the Peter Yan knee, which cost Yan a title on disqualification. Granted, with a lot less force and so on, but you have a guy on his knees in front of you with seconds to go in the round, and you throw a knee strike that hits him in the head. So dumb. So dumb. And then he gets slammed to the mat and knocked out in the 3rd round, and I'm treating it as a knockout. I know that we ended up going to a technical decision. And this was a bad moment for Jaron Villel. Just in general, this was the fight. This was the Villel fight. Not taking the point away from Bondar. 1. 2. Letting him eat 9 elbows while he was clearly unconscious. and then of course making it the clash of heads. I don't know if that's his call. Actually, I don't know. It's about time to talk about replay review here because it's going to come up. It's going to come up more in the Lawrence versus Argueta fight. But there are people who are we need to do something about this review process. We need to get the fights restarted. You can't. You really can't. Obviously with this fight, it's a striking stoppage. If it's clash of heads and that's the rule and whatever, we got to go to a tech decision. And with Lawrence versus Argueta, spoiler, there's not much to talk about Lawrence and Argueta. I'll just talk about it right now, I guess, because we're talking about the whole thing. Argueta was winning. He was out muscling Lawrence. He was doing his thing. Lawrence often has this happen to him in the beginning of fights. That's the one thing that I think people are missing on Twitter because there's a lot of people who are he's instantly going to win. He got robbed of a winner bonus. I don't know about that. He had a nice guillotine wrapped up, and Keith Peterson called a tap. That didn't happen. Maybe he was on his way to winning that. Maybe Ronnie Lawrence was on his way to coming back. We've seen Ronnie Lawrence come back. both guys, I think, got robbed of their chance to show their stuff. And spoiler, I'm going to just rebook them because I thought it was a perfect test kind of for both guys. And let's see what happens again if the referee doesn't f up. But yeah, you can't just restart the guys in a chokehold. It's also borderline just like going to be impossible to like get like the exact same chokehold on it. Like if you've ever been caught in a guillotine choke, there's a lot of different ways to get caught in a guillotine. There's a lot of variants to guillotine choke, like positionally speaking. Like Argetta could get a way better position to just crap it up, or Lawrence could have recovered and like escaped. And no, there's no fair way of doing this. And referee mistakes are going to happen. I thought the reffing process got ragged on a little bit too hard on this one. Although the fact that Jaron Villel is reffing still does point to is still a problem. But like people compare the judging and the refereeing problem. The difference is that the referee, there is the replay review official. There has been some success with like refereeing mistakes, getting things overturned in no contest. There's never been anything with judges. Like there is zero recourse. Nothing you can do when the judges screw up your fight. Nothing at all. And we saw a lot of judges turn in cards that are very suspect on this card. We didn't get a winner wrong. Because the most controversial decision, I guess, was the opener one between Bukauskas and Pauga. But like I had no problem with Bukauskas winning. I just had a problem with the 30-27. But those judges will face no consequences for that. Hernandez, I've got his next fight against Charles Johnson and Bondar. I guess I got Victor Altamirano because he's probably going to fight again because he's probably on a 4-fight contract. I believe that's the entry-level contract the UFC signs. They don't really cut people. They just kind of let you go after the contract is done. So I guess give him the slightly lower version of this fight. I'm a little bit disappointed we didn't get Felipe Boons versus Zhalga Shumagulov. Teresa Bleda won a fight in which she just basically was big, and Fernandez is a terrible wrestler. Which, admittedly, is exactly why I had it as part of my parlay. So, I'm fine with it. I'm good. It's a shame because Fernandez could be like super fun if she could learn to stop takedowns. Like she's got the athletic ability. She's got some exciting striking. She's got the physical. Like there's nothing stopping her except for like proper coaching. And I don't know what you do with that. Blade, I've got Maria Agapova if she's still around because Agapova is also big. Agapova is a physical monster. You know, why not? Because the big question with Blade is what happens if someone matches her just like aggression and intensity. And Agapova's got that in spades. Fernandez, I've got Sabina Mazo as someone who might just stand with her. Although, to be honest, I suspect Mazo even would just take her down. That's how bad the wrestling is. Talked about Ronnie Lawrence versus Argetta. And then the opener was Modestas Bukauskas versus Zach Pauga. I did have Pauga winning rounds 2 and 3. I had Bukauskas winning the first. I thought he hurt Pauga more in that round than Pauga hurt him. And let's have a look at the UFC stats on this one. It's got Pauga outlanding him over the course of the fight. And yeah, outlanding him in the second and the third round. I don't have a huge problem with the third round. I thought it was pretty close. Apparently it was 25-20. Apparently it was 25-25 all and like strikes landed. And just Paugas were all significant and a couple of Bukauskas weren't. I don't really trust the whole non-six strike thing. I did think Pauga won the second, and that's why I had a problem with the judge who scored round 2 for Bukauskas. That was Anthony Manus, who is long been on my kind of radar as a bad judge. So that also doesn't help it. For next opponents, I guess what I'm saying is this was a fine fight, but it was nothing you need to go watch. I've got Bukauskas versus the Prachnio Petrino winner. I've got Pauga against Ihor Potieria, because presumably they still want to do something with Ihor Potieria because they fed him to Shogun. And he beat Shogun. And then they fed him to Olberg, and that didn't go well. So I assume that they're trying to build something out of that. So I don't know. I guess Pauga being an Ultimate Fighter finalist is like, it's the best we can do, I guess. I don't know. I will say this, though. Pauga did show a lot more toughness than he has in the past. Like, he's historically been a guy who gets hurt and doesn't lose, obviously. Like, only lost to Mo Usman by knockout. But, like, he's a guy who kind of gets hurt and just kind of gets, like, a little bit dispirited. Didn't do that here. So that's good. Let's step forward. I find myself more interested in him going forward. And I still have, like, a little bit of faith in Bukauskas. Bukauskas' game was working pretty well early on when he was utilizing kicks. But, like, he stopped kicking. And it's definitely that, like, he's trying to work on, like, this slick defensive thing where, like, he rolls through punches and slips them. And it doesn't always happen. Like, when he's, like, thinking about it, his defense looks, like, really, really good. But then, like, the next exchange, it'll look terrible. And Pauga would just, like, smash at his head and his head not really moving. So, like, he's definitely a work in progress. But I appreciate that, like, he's trying to become a better fighter. And, I mean, this is 205. He's got the frame for it. He's got some level of athleticism. He can be interesting for a while. Anyways, that was the fight card. It's pretty good. I'm going to be running the Bloody Mania card tonight over on the Discord. If you want to check that out, go to the Discord. The link is down below. Follow me on social media. Check out the YouTube, the gaming stuff. And yeah, thank you for listening.